Welcome in to the PFF podcast. It is your big-time Throwcast edition for the week, breaking down quarterbacks. I'm Steve Palazzolo, joined, as always, by former NFL quarterback Zac Robinson. We're back to a full slate of games this week, Zac, so we had all sorts of extra work for you this week. You had to check every quarterback grade, as you always do. And no more buys for you right now. It's a pretty busy, Sunday through Tuesday? It's nonstop for you checking all these grades?
Yeah, it can get a little nonstop. Try to get in some breaks, Monday night, watch the game a little bit, and then kind of get back to it. But yeah, it's a blast going through all these games. You get a pretty good feel for what's going on. And this week was, you look at, just quarterback play as a whole in the NFL. We had about 24, 23 guys that were at average or better this week. So across the board, there were some really solid games. There were some big games from guys that we'll kind of get into. And then, you kind of had Kaiser, Simeon, and even Dak Prescott that was down there in the lower tier. So, but across the board, it was a pretty solid week.
Definitely a group of surprising names sitting atop the PFF grades this week. Joe Flacco was the quarterback of the week. You guys can access all of these grades if you're a part of PFF Elite. We have the individual game grades. If you're looking for the season grades, those are all a part of PFF Edge. And, of course, you can get $10 off any of those packages using the promo code PFF10. Let's get into three quarterbacks we're going to dive into really deep. It's Jimmy Garoppolo making his San Francisco 49ers debut. We'll talk about Phillip Rivers, who's one of the hottest QBs in the league right now. And then you mentioned Dak and how he struggled. And we got to dive in and just see what exactly is happening there. He struggled from a PFF standpoint. Ultimately, he did throw 2 touchdowns against no interceptions, but it was a bit of a different story when you broke down the film. So let's start with Jimmy G, and he goes to Chicago. They score 15 points, so it doesn't look like this dominant outing from Garoppolo. But, the big story with Kyle Shanahan was that, his system is so different and it's so complicated that guys can't even learn the language, and Matt Ryan even had a whole year of transition, his first year with Shanahan in 2015. Maybe wasn't as clean as last year's MVP season in 2016. Let's start with that. Can you speak to just the differences that Garoppolo has to go through going from a New England system and their terminology going to Shanahan and his old school West Coast terminology, which I believe that's what he's using there, correct?
Yeah, it could not be more different. And I was in Cincinnati with Jay Gruden in that West Coast system, and there's pluses and minuses to both systems in New England and what they do in San Fran with the West Coast. West Coast is it's good because you're telling everybody within the play what to do, which also leaves a ton on the quarterback's plate, not only from a verbiage standpoint and the play calls being just, 15, 20 words long.
They take forever, Zac. How do you
forever,
remember them?
and then you got to throw in plays that have a kill or a can where you can adjust the play based on the look, and that adds a whole nother sentence to it. So it's great because you know that when you leave the huddle, each receiver has heard X, dig, zebra, whatever, that they're going to hear their part of the play, and there's no excuses for running the wrong route and things like that. So there's pros and cons to it, but in terms of just trying to mesh the two together, they could not be more different from how they call formations, protections, and then just overall route concepts.
Well, yeah, then I'll say, when you get out onto the field, the actual concepts aren't completely foreign. You still see a lot of the same stuff that Garoppolo was running that he would have run in New England, the same quick passing concepts, similar play action concepts. Of course, Shanahan, the entire Shanahan system known for rolling the quarterback out a little bit more, and certainly see more of that than you normally would in New England, though they did, even the Patriots adjusted to Garoppolo and his athleticism. But hey, overall, what'd you think of his outing? He finished 26 for 37, 293 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 82.4 passer rating. Numbers that aren't really jumping off the page, but I thought it was a pretty impressive debut for Garoppolo, especially first time running that system.
I agree. I think it was just a solid game all the way through. He had the 1 interception on the quick post, kind of slightly behind, contested possession. Lewis Murphy lost it, coming to the ground. You can't fault him too much on that. But other than that, mistake-free. You saw the play-action game. He was 8 for 8, 105 yards on play actions. And then in between the numbers, he was outstanding. He was 16 for 20 for 204 yards in between the numbers. You saw just kind of the style of quarterback that he is. He's great short, intermediate thrower. Didn't have any big plays down the field, but with his decision making, the way he processes the game, there's a lot of sustainability with how he just goes about his style of play. And it was cool to see just it all meshed together and in such a short time being with that offense, and it looked like it was pretty seamless transition when he got on the field.
So he wasn't under pressure a ton, only 10 out of 40 dropbacks, but there were a few of the plays where he was under pressure. It was quick pressure right in his face, and it did seem like when the Bears were able to get to him, it was more through the middle, in between the tackles. He made some ridiculous throws. Some were a little bit of lucky, but either way, he was getting passes off into catchable territory, we'll say, with guys absolutely right in his face. That quick release that he has all the time, it seemed like it was really benefiting him, even with guys in his face. I couldn't believe some of the passes that he got off, like kind of around the defender who was right in his face. Pretty impressive.
It was incredible. Yeah, he had a couple of digs that he had guys just barreling down, a cross over the middle, that he just somehow locates that receiver and feels the space and knows that he's got to get this thing up. And you mentioned his quick release. I mean, it's arguably I know Sunday Night Football does things with the quick release of quarterbacks. I remember last year, if I'm not mistaken, that his might have been right up there with the quickest in the NFL, and that's no surprise. The guy has got,
I believe it, yeah,
absolute quick trigger with that thing. But and then you watch kind of him and Mitch Trubisky side by side, and there's a lot of similarities. So watching that game, just overall, you saw kind of what he can bring with the athleticism, the instinctive kind of playmaking ability, and the ability to extend plays, which we talk about on here so much, has become so big in the NFL, and he definitely has that part to his game.
Yeah, honestly, that was the exact same note that I put into Trubisky's scouting report last year. It was the exact line. Quick release allows him to get rid of the ball even when under heavy pressure. This was like, a guy has a free run at you, and you still can get the ball off quickly enough, to actually get it to your target, to actually get rid of it before you get hit. Something a guy like Jameis Winston doesn't really have that. Not everybody has.
Right.
There's a difference between knowing the pressure is about to hit you and just making that quick decision to get the ball off versus Jameis always feels like he's doing it when he's in the grasp, and that but that's a whole different story. So that part was very impressive, and yeah, I just thought he looked comfortable. Look, I've compared Jimmy G to Matt Hasselbeck in the past, and I need to maybe clarify that. I'm talking like the high-end Matt Hasselbeck, who for about 5 or 6 seasons was a well above average NFL quarterback. He ran that classic, early 2000s West Coast offense, which was whatever the quintessential West Coast offense is in your head of quick, and it's more than that, right? It's way more than that in today's NFL. But it was, the quick passing game. It's good decisions. It's, not gonna chuck the ball, 20, 25 yards down the field all the time. But, I just think that's what Garoppolo looks like, and maybe he's a touch more. But even as a baseline, I think that Hasselbeck style player, a guy that you can win with, a guy whose high-end seasons are going to be among the best in the NFL, and a guy that you can build around. I think Garoppolo played the way we expected him to, right, in his debut.
I agree, and really he's shown it very consistently all the snaps that he's played. It's been the same story each time out. He's been accurate underneath. He's made smart decisions, and then he's extended the play, and that's exactly what we saw. I think. Just overall his style of play and how the NFL has gone. I mean, you can absolutely build around this guy. You might not have the vertical stretch with his arm that maybe Shanahan ideally wants for his vertical play action game that he had with Matt Ryan and Cousins, and then dating back to even RG3 in Washington. But there is plenty of offense for this guy to build around, and you get the right guys around him, and you can absolutely build a really good offense.
Yeah, that's going to be my big question with Garoppolo. You talked about the middle of the field, and that was evident from the first couple snaps of the game that he was just his feel over the middle and anticipation over the middle was outstanding. And everybody likes to think that quarterbacks have this natural growth curve, almost like in Madden, Zach. You know how every year in Madden it's like you get +2 in your overall and then +3, and before you know it, everybody's a 95. It's not really like that with quarterbacks. Real quick, how much of this is the cat and mouse game between quarterback and defense? Because it's not always the smooth climb of getting better. And my point is, what happens when teams start to take away the middle from Jimmy? And to your point,
Right.
maybe doesn't have that cannon for an arm. Are they going to dare him to throw the ball deep and outside the numbers a little bit more? How does that cat and mouse game work, and how do you think he can handle it?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the main thing. Is our team's going to view him as a quarterback where we need to get up in their face and play press cover one, clog the middle of the field, force the ball outside, and sit on some of those timing routes outside the numbers, and see if he can truly be a threat that way. I think that would be the questions that you have going forward. Is that how people are going to view him and know that, hey, if we're sitting back and playing zone coverage with his feel and the way he can process the game and accuracy, he's going to find the right guy. So I think that's a great point. I think that's really the thing that you're looking for going forward. Is that how teams view him, and they're not afraid of his arm? Or are they going to squat on routes and really play kind of tight man-to-man coverage? If you're San Francisco, got to get guys that can beat man-to-man coverage. So, and you got to game plan well, like which Kyle Shanahan does every single week. So, definitely that cat and mouse game is going to be interesting to see just kind of how the rest of the season plays out for him, and how teams are adjusting his overall style of play.
Hey, they have Trent Taylor over there. That's all they need. That little
There you
guy,
go.
he can get open. But yeah, that's what I'll be looking for with Garoppolo. How teams adjust to him, and then how they adjust back in San Francisco. Keep in mind, Garoppolo still only 133 regular season career attempts. So we've been hyping him up as a tradable commodity for about a year and a half. Only 133 career attempts, so still very young in his career and development. Something to keep an eye on. One guy who's been in the league forever, seemingly, and I don't want to say we stuck a fork in him early in the season. That's Phillip Rivers of the Los Angeles Chargers, but there have been some warning signs these last couple of years. There've been some games where his arm doesn't look great, and I've definitely made the statement on here that, hey, that entire class of 2004, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, it's time for their respective teams, to move forward and at least look at the next quarterback. Of course, the Giants already starting that process, but Roethlisberger's bounced back quite well these last few weeks, and Phillip Rivers has bounced back quite well these last few weeks. Maybe the hottest quarterback in the NFL right now, the last 3 weeks in particular. Another game where he picked apart. It was a Browns defense that's not great, but he did it to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, where he completed over 80% of his passes, 430 yards. What have you seen from Rivers? And just ridiculous numbers these last few weeks from him.
Gosh, yeah, he's just been absolutely rolling. The offense as a whole is just playing with a completely different type of rhythm, and it all has predicated on his accuracy. You mentioned his arm. There was early in the season some games where you're saying, I don't know, is his arm okay? Is he's not, the ball's not finishing up on the guy's face mask. He's not throwing it with enough juice. And then you see these last 3 weeks, he's got over 1,000 yards passing, first in the NFL, first in yards per attempt, 9.5. And he's got the most passing yards under pressure and second best passer rating under pressure these last 3 weeks. So he's completely elevated his game, and that offense is gelling right now. We've seen Keenan Allen just cannot be covered, and so it's been a maybe pleasant surprise from what we saw week 3 Kansas City and some of those games kind of in the middle of the season that weren't going as well. But he's hitting his stride. The team in general is hitting their stride and poised for to make this thing pretty interesting down the stretch.
Yeah, we got a 3-way tie now atop the AFC West with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. Coming into the season, we were all, I think, pretty big fans of what the Chargers were capable of. Last offseason, you and I were watching every single quarterback in great depth and exchanging notes, and we were discussing Rivers, and we were like, look, everything's pretty good. Like it's tough to criticize a lot of what Rivers does, and this is coming off of
Yeah.
last year, which was his worst season in probably 4 or 5 seasons, both statistically from a grading standpoint. He just wasn't great overall, throw for throw, every single throw of the season last year. But when you're watching his game, you're just like, I can still win with this guy, right? He's still good. He can do
Right.
this. He can do that. He can read it out. He can make all the throws. But there were, what, 3 or 4 boneheaded decisions. It might have been your line that you sent me, a text or a message. It's like, everything's good if he could just eliminate 3 boneheaded decisions per game. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that was it last year, especially. It seemed like and the stats back it up. Under pressure last year, he led the NFL in interceptions. He had 11 interceptions under pressure, and they seemed to come late in the down. The bonehead, hey, you don't need to make this play, throw it away, take the sack, kick it away. Whatever you got to do to not throw that interception. That's what happened last year. He's turned around this year. He has just 2 interceptions under pressure, and he has the second best passer rating behind Tom Brady, 85.7. So the play under pressure, late in the play, the decision making has been really good and more consistent, especially this past half of the season. So we'll see if that's something that he's kind of harnessed in. He's always going to have that little gunslinger in him, but if he can continue to take care of the football and make these good decisions, they're set up pretty well.
Yeah, I want to discuss that gunslinger thing a little bit because I feel like that was part of it, and even say the Kansas City game, week 3, one of the lowest grades we've ever given Phillip Rivers, and he was just throwing passes that were just dying before they got to the target. He was trying to, throw these tight window throws that just weren't getting there. He was just off, and is there a point in his career where you lose a little bit of arm? And like we said, we've seen bouts of that in the last couple of years. It's not this, pure you just lose it and the arm's gone. But there's enough throws that maybe if you don't have perfect footwork, your arm's not going to make up for it, right? Like
Yeah.
not every throw is going to have that same velocity that it used to. Is it possible for him to have this learning experience and be like, hey, I just can't do that anymore. And if I could just cut down on these couple throws that I used to be able to make and maybe just check this one down, make a little bit better decision these couple situations. Is that the type of thing that can prolong his career, or do you think, he still needs to be able to take those downfield shots that have made him, such a dangerous quarterback through the years?
It's tough. I mean, deep down, he is such a fiery, competitive guy that he doesn't want to hear that he can't make that throw. He's more the type, I'm going to continue to show you I can't make that throw. And but you've seen his arm just look really overall better, especially the past few weeks, where it was dying on him like we mentioned and all those things. But I personally think that his arm is just kind of flowing right now. He's playing with a good rhythm, a good pop, and the ball's just coming out of his hand. But I don't know if we can ever take that Phillip Rivers out of him. He's so competitive, and I personally don't know what this feels like, but to be able to maneuver the pocket like he does and hang in there and he always feels like he can make a throw because his feel in the pocket's so good, and he's able to process coverage as good as anyone that's ever done it. So that all those things combined, you can see why he thinks that he can still make every single throw and shoot. Games like last week, he proved he hit a cover 2 hole shot down the sideline in between coverage, and he proved that he still does have some of that pop in there to make those throws.
So I do feel like quarterback is a position where if you're smart, you can age well, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
Zach, when I talk to you about coverages, you know what you're talking about. Like, you're pretty good. Hey, this is cover 4, and they're trying to do this, and they're forcing this guy this way. You've got a pretty good feel, and you're merely a 4-year backup in the NFL with how many? Any game experience?
No game experience. No, I was for people that haven't listened to us before, I was a practice squad, third, borderline backup, had a chance at some, 2, a couple off seasons, and I was always the third string quarterback. So I had 4 years of preseason play. The second half of preseason games that nobody wants to watch. Those were the ones I was in there trying to
We're
do my
watching.
thing. But yeah, PFF's watch, that's for sure. But yeah, you can. I mean, the amount of knowledge in every single look that this guy has seen, protection wise and just coverages and structures. Like you're saying, he can find a way, like Peyton Manning did late in his career, to just, I know where to go pre-snap. I don't have to throw this thing down the field a bunch. We can just nickel and dime you down the field as long as I'm making good decisions and throwing it accurately and giving these guys a chance for catch and run. He definitely has a chance to prolong this and play, a few more years.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff I'm saying. Like, you haven't. I haven't seen a decline in that from Rivers, other than the few times it's like a little too much gunslinger in him, and he makes a couple bad decisions. Right. But I was trying to talk you up. You know all of these covers. You know all these different things. You're so smart, Zach, as far as breaking down NFL action. Imagine how smart a Phillip Rivers is after years of actually doing it on the field. And or Tony Romo. We're seeing Romo do it in the broadcast booth, calling out every play. And whether you like Romo or not, I think he adds a lot to the broadcast. From a positive standpoint.
I agree. I mean, he's seen, and you get to just know overall philosophies of the defensive coordinators each week, and you say, here's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to make me do to up and down the field. They're gonna have eyes on the quarterback. They're gonna be spot dropping zones for the most part. I'm gonna have to take what they give me, and then when I do get a chance down the field, I got to make that throw. And those guys just know the ins and outs of those defenses and the coordinators so well that they can just keep doing it at a very high level.
It does add a little bit to it, so I like it. But yeah, I think Rivers he's trending the right way this season, and he's dangerous right now. The way that offense is rolling. You mentioned Keenan Allen. I'm a big fan of Hunter Henry at tight end and over the middle of the field too. So something to keep an eye out for, and watching out for Rivers and the arm looking a little bit better these last couple weeks. Quick break to tell you that this episode is brought to you by PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine, a new generation in sports analytics where they play the game 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at PredictionMachine.com today and earn a $5 credit that can be used towards the purchase of any package. All right, we're going on the other end of the spectrum right now. Dak Prescott, as we said, struggled in his Thursday night game against the Washington Redskins, even though the Dallas Cowboys won. It's been a multi-week struggle here for Dak after that incredible rookie season. And going back to my first point about Garoppolo, it's not like every quarterback just automatically gets better, and every week gets better, and every season gets better, and it's this pure linear growth. And I think we're entering this stage of NFL quarterbacking as Brady gets closer to retiring in the next 10 years, and Breeze and all these guys are going to, Breeze and Roethlisberger, and these guys are going to move on. I don't know that there's this definitive, clear-cut, hey, here's the top quarterback. People are maybe looking at Carson Wentz to be that guy right now, or Russell Wilson, or Andrew Luck, but I just think every year it's going to fluctuate. And one year it might be Dak, and it might be Russell Wilson, it might be Wentz. It could be a Derek Carr or a Marcus Mariota, but here's my point with Dak. He's shown some weaknesses these last couple weeks. And a lot of his tape has started to look more like his college tape and not that impressive rookie tape. What are you seeing from Dak now that the situation around him is not as pristine as it was last year as far as offensive line and the running game goes?
It's just overall, I'm ready to see the good Dak back. But these last, 4 weeks, the whether there's left tackle problems, Ezekiel Elliott's out. I mean, he's just not playing well at all personally. You can take all that stuff aside, but his accuracy, his reads, pre-snap decision-making, where to go with the football, and his feel in the pocket is just all off. And you're seeing it happen down to down, and then he might flash a play where you're like, okay, there he is, and then it kind of has gone back and forth. And you mentioned the college stuff. The games that stick out, when evaluating him coming out were there was a Missouri game, and then you always like to see how guys play against Alabama because it's so dang hard to play. But Alabama and Texas A&M and all those games kind of had this weird feel in the pocket and accuracy, and just things were just off. And that's really what we've seen the last 4 weeks is all those things combined. And we've talked about his under pressure passer rating; it's really low, and all those things. But some of these things have shown up that we saw in college, and he was typically able to bounce back. Even last year when he would have a bad game, we always talked about his ability to just bounce back, play to play, and game to game. But we have not seen him dig himself out of that hole these past 4 weeks.
Yeah, even from the get-go in this Washington game, just overthrowing a pass in the flat. He misread. I don't want to say he misread quarters, but he forced a pass into a quarter safety who had a better shot at catching the pass over Dez Bryant, his intended receiver. Beyond that, just a few just misses, and there's so many throws. You and I were talking about them. I was like, hey, is Dak trying to hit this? Is he just burning it in the dirt? That's how off his accuracy was on a couple of these throws. He still bounced back, and like I said, they won the game. But I think you even sent me a text because you do have experience throwing to Dez Bryant, and you were like, yeah, he's just not putting those end zone passes in the right place for Dez. Dez had to go up and over the corner for the touchdown pass, and I know it does sound weird sometimes, especially if you're a new listener and you're like, why are you guys criticizing Dak Prescott for a touchdown pass? But we are trying to evaluate the ball location and the receiver's role and the cornerback's role in the result of the play, which was a touchdown. And even that fade in the end zone, it feels like it was a long time ago. It was Thursday night, but fade in the end zone, Dez had to climb over the corner to go get it. It's a pass that's normally broken up pretty easily by the corner. They went for it again a little bit later in the fourth quarter, and he left it even lower, and they got away with it another time with a pass interference. So even the plays that are coming across as successful, you're still like, I don't know, he's just a little bit off from an accuracy standpoint.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Those back shoulder throws to Dez, he's been leaving them inside all season, and for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, mentally or whatever it is, but gosh, there's one place to put that ball for Dez Bryant. It's high and away from the DB and let him just box out a guy and go up and get it, and he comes down with that thing 90% of the time. But he has not thrown those very well. I think the receivers' consistent separation, it just hasn't been there quite like last year.
That's what I was going to ask you about too. How much the receivers, because everybody's talking O-line and running backs, but are the receivers as much to blame right now?
Yeah, I don't think Cole Beasley's the same guy that he was last year when he was uncoverable in the slot at times. Jason Witten has he's gotten older, and the separation and the window's definitely smaller for him to throw to Witten. But you mentioned you did the accuracy charting for him coming out of college, and when he had a step or the defender was closing and he had a step of separation, he was and correct me if I'm wrong, he was the most accurate guy in that class.
He was by far. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're seeing where the separation's a little bit tighter, the accuracy hasn't quite been there, and then you're looking at overall just statistically, versus single high looks when it's a good clean look for the quarterback to throw. If there's 8 in the box or however you want to put it, but any single high man-to-man or cover 3 zone, he is a full 2.5 yards per attempt lower this year than he was last year. So
wow.
these looks that you're getting that you love to see as a quarterback in single high coverage, he just hasn't delivered as accurately, and there hasn't been the same type of precision that we saw him play with last year.
That's a great number and great insight, because to your point, right, everybody says you need a running game so you could pass the ball. In theory, the very basics of football, if you're running the ball well, the team has to bring that extra guy down, and they will give you a single high look, which again, in theory, it's either an easy zone to throw against or it's single coverage, right? It's right. A favorable look with bigger windows, and just generally speaking, the look that you want when you're throwing the ball, and the fact that he's not having that success, blame Zeke or blame the offensive line as much as you want, it is a factor. And Dak right now, 28th in PFF passing grade at 71.8. It's a fine line right now between 28 and even 18 or 20 as far as the grades go, but I think it just shows where he's been. Last year, one of the things I loved most about Dak, it wasn't that he didn't have bad games. He had some games, Zach, last year that were worse than his games this year, to be honest. His 2 Sunday night football games.
Giants, Eagles.
Exactly. Those Sunday night football games last year, they were terrible. But
right.
What happened the next week? And we talked about it on this podcast quite a bit. His ability to bounce back, that stuff that PFF loves to quantify everything. We just can't quantify that ability to bounce back. And I guess we could, but he always seemed to have it, though, right? He just always found a way to bounce back from adversity. I'm not saying it hasn't completely been there this year, but I want to see more of it. I want to see that ability. Right now, he's coming off a pretty bad game, a bad stretch. I want to see him finish strong because to me that was one of the biggest attributes that made him so good as a rookie.
I agree. I mean, that was the single thing that you kept waiting for him to kind of mess it up, and then for Romo to be healthy, and they go back to Romo, and he just kept playing great, kept doing the things that that kept him on the field, and was really one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last year. So I keep waiting for week to week, just say, hey, all right, this is the week that he's coming back. This is the week he's going to, resurface into his old self, and that just has not happened. We'll see what he's got down the stretch here, and if he can pick it up. I mean, really, as a whole offense, the flow of the game plan. We mentioned the separation, that's got to be better. But this is all on him right now. He's got to find a way to somehow use his legs more, get out of these funks and hit some big plays down the field. We haven't seen a ton of big plays down the field.
All right, let's go rapid fire now. We're going to fly through some of the good and the bad from the league. We mentioned some curious names atop the PFF grading this week. Nothing more surprising than Joe Flacco, the best game we've seen from him in quite a while. What did you see from Flacco?
He was good. He was solid all the way through. Played with a good rhythm. They were able to stay in rhythm with some of the looks they got, and gosh, he had a big time throw down the field. He was the least pressured quarterback this week that helped out a little bit, but he was still making a ton of throws and was just overall playing with the kind of rhythm that we have not seen a whole lot out of him. We saw him play well against the Raiders, and you kind of look at their structures defensively. It's kind of similar to what the Lions do, so that you saw him kind of take advantage of a lot of zone coverage, and then like we always want to see him do is just hit those deep shots down the field. He's got a big arm. You want to see him hit those more consistently, and he was able to do that.
It's something to look for here because Baltimore has, and I'm going to mention it with Bortles too. I think Baltimore and Jacksonville are just two scary playoff teams just because I think they're capable of playing championship defense. Both of those defenses are capable. So if they do get a stretch of good play from a Flacco or a Bortles, they're more dangerous in the playoffs, I think, than people might want to lead on, just because those defenses can, if anybody can slow down New England or Pittsburgh, it's those top defenses. So
I agree.
Something to keep an eye on.
I would not want to. I mean, playing the Jacksonville Jaguars defense in the playoffs. I mean, you want no part of that.
Not at all.
That's going to be interesting to just see if Bortles can just make smart decisions and just not mess it up and give those guys a chance, because you gotta love what both those defenses are doing.
So let's discuss Bortles quickly. He had another good game, maybe his best game of the season again. It was against an Indianapolis Colts defense that's not really instilling fear into anyone. But again, any positive for Bortles at this point, a guy that they've protected pretty well with the run game and that good defense, you'll take it. Any positive you can get, you're going to take it at this point for Bortles. What'd you see on Sunday from him?
He was solid. To see him go through a game where, he doesn't make any mistakes, accuracy is consistent throughout the game. Obviously, you don't see that a whole lot. So seeing him just have a game where everything came easy to him was nice for a change. Had great touch in the red zone on a few throws. Overall, just solid accuracy, smart decisions. Check the ball down when he needed to. So definitely a positive game from him. We'll see if he can do it against some of these better defenses as they get going down the stretch.
He had a jump throw for one of his best throws of the day. Is that right?
Jump throw on the corner of the end zone, man. Every time he jump throws, it's at least gives his guys in a good position to make a play. So
I'm telling you, we gotta get you with him this offseason. Get a few more jump throws out of him. We'll send him to the Pro Bowl.
There you go.
Case Keenum, the Minnesota Vikings continue to roll. They roll. They won 14-9 in not a ton of plays in this game. It was just this controlled, clean game. You and I both watched it very closely. What'd you see from Keenum against the Falcons on Sunday?
he just took what was there the whole game. There wasn't a whole lot of big plays down the field. We've seen him, play action wise, be one of the best play action deep vertical team in the NFL. And there wasn't those down the field this game, but he took care of the football, didn't have any turnover worthy throws. He was 21 for 23 from clean pockets. So he was, just taking what was there. They had, heavy dose of screens and those things, but he slid around the pocket and made key plays when he needed to on some third downs. That's been huge for him this whole season.
I want to say you keep waiting for the wheels to fall off for Case Keenum, but instead, the last 4 weeks he's been outstanding. He's completed over 70% of his passes in all of those games. Sunday over 80%. Clean, efficient football, I think, is the best way to describe him, other than 2 interceptions he threw against Washington back in Week 10 after playing a great game. He almost tried to throw that game away, but other than that, he has been just really, really efficient, keeping that offense on schedule with some pretty good playmakers that he's thrown to on the outside. All right, let's go to the bad. 2 guys to highlight that were just not good on Sunday. Tyrod Taylor, Buffalo Bills, he's banged up right now. His status is unknown going forward. We might be seeing more of Nate Peterman, but what did you see from Tyrod on Sunday against the New England Patriots?
Yeah, just overall bad game, off game. You had the bad red zone pick early that just kind of set the tone really for the entire game. His style of play, it's much talked about. He maybe turns down some throws here and there, but can make up for it, with his legs and moving around and not throwing the ball into coverage and just keep his teams in games. But this game, he took it to an ultimate extreme. The conservatism, just turned down a bunch of reads, wasn't letting it go, and then the bad red zone pick is just something he can't do for his style of play. So overall, just not a good day for Tyrod. That
was the uncharacteristic part. The idea of missing reads and all that stuff. He's, like you said, he's worked his way around that a little bit, been able to, if you just never turn it over, you can at least keep your team in the game. But when you throw a bad red zone pick, essentially right to a dropping defensive lineman, that's rough. That's not what you're looking for. Blaine Gabbert, rough outing for him with Arizona. Made a few nice throws in there, but he kicks the game off with a poorly underthrown interception, has a pick six a couple plays later, and open receivers that he was just missing down the stretch when they had a chance. They had a chance to creep back into the game against the Rams. What did you see from Gabbert and the Cardinals, who were, tossing around the idea that he could be the future there, but I don't know. The track record's not really great for Gabbert.
I'm with you. The Arians comments about that, I don't think we all would be in agreement that doesn't make a ton of sense. But the guy, bad decision early in the game, kind of bounced back, made some throws. He's got, in terms of arm talent, he's got a good arm. It's just the decision making, the feel in the pocket, the processing of coverage quickly, and with guys barreling down, that's always been kind of where he struggles. And that game, it showed up big time all the way throughout, from the beginning until the end. But still, like you said, he still mixed in some good throws in there and kind of hung around and kept them alive.
Yeah, it was not great from Gabbert. It does look like the Arizona Cardinals will be in the beautiful quarterback carousel markets this offseason. I cannot wait to break it all down, Zach. It's going to be a hectic season. We say it every single year, hectic offseason.
This one's going to live up to the billing, though, it seems like. I mean, it's going to be –
this one's going to be legit.
What are the Broncos going to do?
Yep.
I mean, there's so many teams out there. We've talked about the older quarterbacks, which guys are going to move on from, which guys are going to take early in the draft to replace these guys. So it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Alex Smith, where does he land? What do the Vikings do with essentially 3 capable starters on their roster right now? It's the more Case Keenum plays like this, the more I think it might be Case Keenum in Minnesota moving forward, because he's playing some good football. I know it's going crazy. But that'll do it for us today on the PFF podcast, your big time Throwcast edition. Don't forget, get to ProFootballFocus.com for Edge and Elite, those 2 subscriptions that you can find all of our grades and stats that we've been talking about during this entire show. PFF 10 will get you $10 off your purchase, even if you do Elite monthly, which again I highly encourage guys give it a shot, give it a look, try it out for a month, and see if you like it. All right, guys, we'll be back, Sam and I, for our mailbag, and then a Week 14 preview later in the week. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already, and we will talk to you guys soon.